I think pretty much is in the actual stuff. I think we know about them applying for the biosphere status. Do the next slide there. Pretty much covers, I think, the area that they're looking for in terms of where they'd like to formulate the biosphere site. I'm not quite sure what the status is on it at the moment, but I'm sure it must be fairly far down the line in a sense. I know they've been working on it for a while. I think it's the next one. What have we got here? Okay, Xanadu Eco Park. That seems a bit familiar, and I think that's where the eagles were, if I'm not mistaken, a while back when we looked at some of the other stuff that was in that area.
That's around the artistry dam.
Yeah, it's behind the dam, yeah. Okay, that's my next one. Yeah, I think John's main concern here was the fact that that cleaning up stuff is coming to a sort of end in the sense that, I don't understand here, but, and I think the main concern here is that in the future with the cleaning up of the actual weed and stuff in the dam itself, it's going to become an issue. If I'm not mistaken, I think the chemical treatment and all of that stuff is almost over as well. I'm not sure if this is financially based or if this is just an end of a project, but there's a good possibility it's probably financially based as well. Once again, I have no background on it, unfortunately.
Rich, for the sake of the people that don't know, it's mainly Arbornia that has invaded that whole dam surface.
Yeah, it's a water hyacinth,
Yeah.
mostly, yeah. And what that does is it basically takes all the oxygen out of the water and creates an anaerobic sort of reaction, and you end up with algae growth, and we have red tide, and we have all these weird things happening in the dam which eventually kills the fish, and we have these massive things of fish dying on the banks and stuff. And I think that's the tropication that they're talking about on that previous slide, is that they're concerned that with the cleanup stopping, that's now going to come back. I refer to that as the green dam for obvious reasons. When I was so big, I used to fish there and it was clear. Now you can almost walk on water if it's so thick in some places. Okay, this looks like the usual sort of challenges. Khalis Valley Conservancy looks like they're trying to get this going again. If my memory serves me right, I think this has been started and stopped a few times. So hopefully they can get that committee up and running. It's a normal challenge, I think, for this, especially when we community-based, volunteers and stuff. I'm sure a lot of us can appreciate the effort and time and stuff that goes into these things. Can I flip? Oh, okay, the button. Yeah, I have a remote. I won't flick channels. Ooh, there we go, off to a bad start. Did I push the wrong button? Okay, I'm pushing on the green. Okay, now it's behaving. Alright, okay, so let's see what's on the next one. Okay, our Vulture project. I know we've checked on this in the past, and it seems to be, from what I can understand, it looks like it's very successful. And what's nice about this is it gives the general public the opportunity to actually come and, in a controlled environment, actually interact with vultures very closely. And what we find is if people feed birds of prey like this on their own, they can be prone to a whole lot of issues. So this is a good concept in that I think it's very controlled, and it removes the aspect of them being poisoned and all the other various things that a lot of times happen on farms and that. Okay. Alright, looks like Helen's involved with this one. And yeah, once again, our typical issue. It's what I refer to as the stop-start concept. We find we have a certain select amount of people that are very enthusiastic and they get all passionate about it, and then over time the enthusiasm wanes and eventually your committee sort of disappears without sounding very negative, but and then you're left with the diehards. And the diehards basically appear to be trying to restart and getting the stuff running. I see the chairman has fallen off the scene as well. So hopefully that one can get going as well. I think this is sort of common with the fact that we don't really get as much support as we should. It's a whole management issue, I think, as well.
Hugh Roberts was the chairman, and he's left because of he's a very old man, so he's actually left.
Okay, so he's retired, or he's out the area.
He actually kept the game for many years. Since he's left, we've got a lot of that.
All right. Okay, so in other words, the passionate sort of diehard is no longer, and now it's a case of getting the new replacement.
Take him back from the old age home and put him back. We've done it.
Can we have a vote on it? All right, let's see what else we've got here. Pickleray, that looks like it's going along strong. 300 members, that's quite promising. If I recall my involvement in the organizations, this one's been around for quite a while, so I would assume that it's running very well. And it seems to be quite robust in living, if I can call it that. Our usual challenges, alien invaders, probably we'll have working on fire coming up soon. That was a good guess. Yeah, I think this time of the year is always particularly challenging. I know this also is part of our slide, and I think it sort of covers a lot of the various conservancies across the country, especially as we go through the winter area. Having these teams is very beneficial. Once again, our teams come and go. Being paid by government, the tenders and stuff tend to be erratic, and we find in many instances, if I can, for example, in our area, Suikerbosrand, they lost their team last year, they didn't have budget, and as a result 70% of reserve went down. So they play an important role, and 70% equates to about 20,000 hectares or something. So it was a substantial amount that was lost. It's reassuring to know that university is still continuing. We do appreciate involvement from the universities in a lot of our areas, because not only does it promote the fact that we exist, but it also gives us scientific data and all the other things that come with it. And it's nice when people use them for theses and things like that. I know in Suikerbosrand the guys have done various theses on bird life and stuff, and some of our actual aloes are 4 or 5 meters tall. So they've actually built platforms, and they've done research on the actual species of what happens above that platform of aloe, which is pretty amazing, because you don't generally get to see that.
Great, at the moment we've got 4 universities, Western Cape, Johannesburg, what other one for you? Have asked us for info, and they're doing studies in conservancies.
Yeah. Is it sleep mode? There we go. Alright, just a general introduction, sort of the program for the couple of days. I'm sure we all know about that. I've been having some technical glitches today. The car wouldn't start, funny enough, today as well, so it was one of the challenges to get here. We use the finger one. Okay, so must I cough or jump or? No, I won't cough. I'm coughing all the time. Okay, you can go to the next one. Thank you. All right, just the opening thing, obviously for Gauteng, we're just doing the central region, as well as the southern Gauteng region, which is where I'm mostly involved with Ivan. Next slide. All right, just some background on Gauteng province. We are the smallest province in South Africa. Unfortunately, with that comes the fact that we're very densely populated as well. And as a direct consequence of that, we have quite a few large metropolitan areas, of which we're probably aware of at the moment: Joburg, the Kuruleni and Tshwane. And then we're going through an interesting challenge in the south of Joburg at the moment, because the powers that be in government are trying to create a new metro for political reasons, we feel, and financial gain, obviously, because their salaries double. And let's just be honest that the Sedibeng district municipality, consisting of the three local municipalities of Lesedi, Midwal and Mfuleni, they're trying to push those three all into one new metro. And I keep hearing these very strange names of, I don't know English, you know what they're going to call it, but I hear some really strange things. So that's a current challenge that's coming up, because the unfortunate thing with this is what happens is we lose access to all of our resources, in that everything changes once again. So, you've set up certain key sort of relationships with people. For example, Midwal has got a new mayor, which happened out of the blue. And once again, politics unfortunately comes to play, in that there's, how can I call it, I wouldn't say competitive interaction, but I think you know where I'm going, in the sense that certain municipalities don't talk to others because of politics. And it creates a very charged environment which doesn't help us ecologically, or even for that matter economically as well. So that's just a threat that's sitting with us at the moment. There's no final answer on that yet now.
Second.
Okay, so we wait with the bated breath, but there's a fair chance they might manage to push it through. Next slide. Alright, just some background on the Gcsa. This being our 10th anniversary, started roughly in February of 2003, and primary motive was to get some teeth to get into actually protecting our environment. And I think there were a number of key people which Trafford touched on earlier, in that they saw the need, and were obviously concerned, and we've obviously come into the whole process along the way. Personally, I think what I've been in about 6-7 years odd. And if I look at what's happened in the last 6 or 7 years, it's quite hectic. We are fully independent, non-profit, and consist mostly of people that are self-funded, volunteers, passionate, etc., and obviously hopefully willing to work for it as well. Next slide, thank you. The main crux of the Gcsa in terms of conservancies, I'm sure we've heard this, touch on it briefly, the types. And we have quite a wide sort of mix of these currently in Gauteng, ranging from school conservancies right through to some rural ones, informal settlements, as well as very, very rural, if I can call it. And the sizes obviously vary accordingly. Next slide. Okay, our typical problems, and I think this is common to all of the regions, is the various things listed there: mining, dumping, refuse, overgrazing, the various things, challenges. I must be honest. I think in some areas we've been successful. Some certainly more successful than others, but it is an ongoing challenge. Next slide. Just some ideas on the mission of the Gcsa. It speaks for itself: ecologically friendly environmental practices to ensure our cultural and natural resources are protected. Just a bit of changes. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a new website, which is actually quite nice. I thought it was important just to notice and just to bring it up. General projects. These are ongoing projects, and they vary in context, in that some of them are school-based, some of them are socially based, some of them are ongoing in that we interact with the local communities, and some of them are specific to the actual conservancies themselves. And to some degree we interact with other NGOs and other governmental organisations. I'm sure when Andrew speaks he'll have a whole lot of other input in terms of, like, on the Joburg side and the metro side and things like that. But I mean, at local municipality level, we interact quite at very personal levels sometimes in terms of the people we interact with. Next slide. Dis my Afrikaanse. Various projects in terms of looking at protecting our indigenous plants and stuff. Next slide. That one, I think we're all quite happy to know what that is. We wish we didn't have it. I can say, fortunately, Gauteng has very little of that on our side because I think it's a bit cold. Alien animals, etc. Tourism, to some degree, is something that would be very beneficial to us, but I think because of socio-economic issues and the decline in the economy over the last couple of years, we've seen a bit of a negative sort of turn on the south of Joburg, deep south of Joburg in terms of tourism, and hopefully that can recover at some point. It's always a difficult one because it's based on feet. If you don't get the feet through your stuff.
Where's that train?
Station. That is, yeah.
It's on the old railway line from Pretoria to Gcsa by Paul Kruger.
Paul Kruger, yeah.
You've noticed that?
No, it's here local, yeah. So that's not on our side, it's just in from a tourism point of view. Yeah. I don't know if you know the history, but Paul Kruger took a train after he got escaped in Witbank and stuff, and he caught the train through to Maputo, and fortunately he got out of South Africa and saved the Second World War and Austria, but anyhow, we won't go there. Next slide. Okay, just in terms of educational stuff, various things, tree identification, indigenous plants, birds, grass, stars, all the usual good stuff that we do for education, field outings, walks and stuff. I know the Tree Society we've been quite busy with, and this time of the year specifically is very nice because coming into spring we get a lot of rapid sort of plant growth and stuff, and it's normally quite nice weather-wise to get out and do these type of things. In terms of education, Gcsa at Wits, these are sort of some of the big things that are involved in terms of central Gauteng. On average, every year, this is 2013, we have a couple of thousand kids basically, about 6,000 odd that come through Wits in a week. And every year we run different themes, to just promote ecology, conservation, various things. And it ranges from, it might be, for example, it might be muti plants one year, it might be spiders and creepy crawlies the next year, and then it's a case of greening and, various themes and stuff. Okay, next slide. You did win this best day, eh? Okay, so I got it right. Okay, this was a recent show a couple of months back at Walkable, agricultural thing, which is a new show now that started. It was running before. It stopped for a number of years. It's now started and it was very, very successful. And I'm sure they're going to carry on with that as well. Projects. This is one of the plant things we did at Yebo, also at Wits in Mahulwe. And next slide. Okay, we do various surveys from time to time as well. This specifically dictates on the frog side. We've done some bird surveys and various others as well. Okay, there are a couple of projects running which we are involved in. Our projects, cool. That is the muti stuff at Wits again, just a bigger slide. Also, we try and get involved at the social level at schools. And then, of course, 702 Sunday morning, Zamleri accommodates us. We do the odd interview from time to time. And we also interact a lot with the media, for example, like with me, with our mining threat that we experienced. We use the media because it's important, it's a tool that we can, and once again, we have to engender relationships with those guys as well. And they very much support us, I think, in terms of these key issues. Next slide. At community level, crime prevention. What's interesting is, as you get the guys from crime prevention to get involved in litter collections, which we run from time to time as well. I know Ivan's got quite an extensive involvement on the CPF side, and I must be honest, even on our side, being rural, from a farming community point of view, we very, very or very connected between local reservists, police, various farm organizations, Biertwachter, and all of these things. And we have an extensive radio network that we use as well. And the overlap is nice because we can report ecological issues. For example, when animals escape out of the reserve, like the other day when we drove through Eland, that we were walking on the road next to the reserve because the fences are falling over, we can obviously communicate easily through those mechanisms. Just some ideas in terms of, I'm sure we all know what environmental impact assessment notices look like. We prefer to see less than more. And then obviously identifying various important things like, in this case, bat caves and stuff, which not only from a scientific point of view, but you can use them socially in terms of schools and stuff and various other things. So it's very rewarding for the local community. Next slide. And then, of course, with all the positives, there comes also the negatives, unfortunately. Our good old oils and all the chemicals and stuff that we tend as humans, our terrible two-legged animals we are. We tend to kill a lot of things, sometimes knowingly and unknowingly. And this obviously is an ongoing thing, illegal dumping. We find, especially in the rural areas, the guys feel that they have the right to just dump stuff wherever they like because they would like to get rid of their problems. It puts pressure on us, it puts pressure on the community, we put pressure on the local resources, and the municipalities have to get involved, and at some point we even bring in the green scorpions, police, etc. And we've had a few instances where we had to actually deal at that level with dumping and stuff, especially when it comes to medical and chemical waste. Our good old pollution. We certainly have our challenges in terms of, as Johannesburg or the Gauteng region develops, we're on a daily basis just being exposed to more and more stuff. I mean, Heineken, as an example, in Klip River, is now apparently discharging waste into the local river systems at night and stuff, and I call it an interesting toxic bath because we've got Heineken now, which lets out yellow sludge from the hops and stuff, and that's mixed with the hair stuff, the bleaching stuff from the paper mills, and that's mixed with Ekurhuleni sewage works just across the river, and then that's mixed with Tongaat with the maize stuff. So we get a nice sort of aromatic mixture of stuff that keeps getting dumped into Lesbok and Klip River and all of these things through Emnon Klip, and with obvious consequences. The frustration lies in trying to actually, as we all probably are aware, prosecute, investigate and get something done about it, but it's an ongoing challenge. This is stuff, the sodium fluorosilicate, which Ivan and them had dumped in their area. The next slide. Okay, then this seems to be something that's on the increase, especially this time of the year, because the grass is overgrazed, it's burnt, it's flat, and with the proliferation of informal settlements and stuff in the major metropolitan areas, we're ending up getting more and more of this happening. The problem with this is the SAPS generally doesn't really react or is uneducated in the fact that it is actually against the law. So this is an ongoing challenge, and if any, we have the problem in the Free State as well, so I'm a little bit involved there as well. Okay, next slide. These are the type of things you intercept. This was a bucket load of stuff you guys got in Walkerville or something, what? Yeah. So at least some people do get caught, but it doesn't always happen, and this stuff now gets spread out and obviously reduces or impacts on the natural quantities of this stuff. So these are our challenges in the south. Next slide. Okay, just some basic sort of stuff. I've probably touched on most of this, but in the last 5 years, south of Joburg, we've seen massive urban edge sprawl. We're seeing almost a break in the urban edge in some areas. And it's of a nature that local government is actually unable to stop it to some degree, because the demand for housing and growth and stuff, even though economically apparently we're in a decline in South Africa. If I've got to look at some of the houses and cars and stuff that people are buying and driving, I doubt that sometimes. But with that comes our population growth, and with that, like I say, I've had the personal experience of a mining threat literally on the border of Suikerbosrand, literally within 200 meters of the fence. That is now in year 2. I'm still trying to get a positive or negative ROD result from DMR. To date, according to the requirements, they should have released it in the 2nd of January this year, and now we're almost at the end of the year. What we do here with mining, for example, is these guys are trying now to build contacts through the local municipalities, under the tables and all over the place. And unfortunately, bribery and corruption is a very real threat to us in South Africa. But I'm pleased to say at this point nothing has happened, and I will continue to believe that it will not happen. We will make sure it doesn't happen as best we can. Industrial expansions, we're seeing it now, R59 corridor coming out of Joburg. It did develop 5 odd years ago, hit that economic decline, stopped, but I see there's now a renewed sort of growth happening there. And I'll give you an example. I drive home on a Saturday afternoon on the R59, and I drive back to work on the Monday morning, and there's a whole area of a suburb that's been graded. I don't know if you know about it. Between the blockhouse and that bridge. What is that? Nobody knows. That's how fast these things happen. You know, I don't know when these oaks did it. I don't know if they worked on Sunday or what, but it literally is pegged out, scraped, graded, and yeah, okay. Our resources demands are obviously becoming an issue.
Sorry?
Yes.
Behind the blockhouse.
Between the blockhouse and the airfield,
there's a road that runs along.
That bridge that goes across.
Yeah.
You know about
we found it last weekend because we were going to take a shortcut through the mountain bike. And it just flattened.
It just appeared. And I'm literally saying it was 2 days, if that. And it's big, it's roads.
Last weekend.
Yeah, literally. And
the EIA notices already.
Nothing. And the crazy thing is, I mean, the blockhouse is a perfect example.
Another one.
Okay, I stopped when I say it was me specifically, but the reality is, you're driving home and there's bulldozers. It's a national monument, and these guys are bulldozing the whole area around the national monument. But they took 4 months almost to stop that development. So now it's just rocks and weeds. But the damage is done. Now on the other side, now we have this, it looks like a suburb.
I guess this is factory.
Okay.
Commercial warehousing.
Yeah. But it's a difficult one because that whole corridor is industrial on the R59. So whether it is, but yeah, it's challenging. What we're also finding is, as more and more people move into these areas, our water sources are being stressed. We are very rural, so we have huge dependencies on water. And you know, as more and more people want more and more land, we have less and less available. I mean, this is economics 101. But so you know, I end and I say the chicken and the egg problem. You know, which one do you deal with first, or which one comes first? It's always a difficult challenge because, yeah, they're both real, but we don't really always have the choice of which one we get given, if I can call it that. And if I look at what's happening in the south, Andrew, you're aware of it, Ivan, you're aware of it. 3 major shopping centres planned that we're aware of. I see on the top of the hill at Kamara, that's a shopping centre that Millionaire's View.
I can talk to you about that.
Okay, so
the permission's actually expired.
Yeah.
We started to build thinking we could get into this expiry date and then you still have stock. It's very fun.
But that was a typical one. They just went in and bulldozed the whole top of
they
it.
had township
Oh, did they?
environmental rights.
Okay, all right.
They expired.
And then down the Camaro on the other side against the ridge, there's another one there as well.
There's
Another-
residential and we've
Oh,
got a
46
regional
units.
shopping centre on Aspen.
And then the Aspen, and then of course the equivalent of, what's the other one? Melrose Arch, the TYB one.
Oh yeah.
Is that actually going to start?
That's good.
Okay, so there's just an
They calmed it
example.
down substantially.
Yeah. And we're talking 30, 40,000 square meter developments that are just popping up all over the place. The one on the Benscombe one in Midrand is quite interesting as well. They're doing those berms. Apparently that's going to be something of Africa shopping centre, more bigger than anything that exists at the moment. So, yeah. Next slide. This is an interesting one. This is just a little movie that, I don't know, have you guys seen this or not?
I got that from Trafford.
Okay.
It was one of our-
It was given to me actually from the environmental manager for the little town in Netherlands. It was during our local action for biodiversity set up a couple of years ago. It's very good.
What Rich is actually saying here is actually happening in all regions of Gauteng. It's just been basically done in the south of Johannesburg, but those same similar problems are all over Gauteng. The same type of things we're doing. A lot of that stuff is from other conservancies in other areas, but that's the work we're doing in the whole of Gauteng.
Alright, and then that basically brings our presentation to an end. It's just a general overview of what's currently happening in Gauteng and the challenges without really getting into the nitty-gritty details and stuff. But I can reassure you there's a lot of challenges, and I think in many areas you can obviously have similar or you can agree in the sense that we are up to much bigger challenges in the future. What is positive, however, I must add, is that as we move down, if I look at the last 6 years, is that with the relationships that we have built with certain key people, there is a willingness in certain areas to cooperate. And in some instances, to the positive in that we actually get things changed, or we get things modified, or we get things done in a more ecologically friendly sort of manner. And I think that's a key thing moving forward, is that we can't have black or white. The reality is, as this movie depicted, we need to give nature space. But at the same time, we also require space. So I think the challenge moving forward is going to be how we can coexist in the sense that we use that space concurrently, so that we don't remove the one animal to the detriment of the other. Because I think it's clear if we get rid of the animals, we ourselves are going to actually be the losers. And just something simple like the honeybee, if we remove the honeybee out of the equation, civilization as we know it can almost come to an end, literally. So we need to be appreciative of not only the big animals but the small ones as well. And collectively we can hopefully find some medium or balance in the middle. Okay, any questions? Yes?
Yes, I just want to check, just because of its access to whether I will be given an opportunity to promote on the recognition of municipality or the application for subdivision of agricultural lands.
Okay, that's an interesting one, because depending on the land we're referring to, there are certain existing infrastructure laws and stuff in terms of, like for example in rural, we can only subdivide to a certain size, and I think it's 5 acres or 5 hectares, and some places it's, yeah. And there needs to be, below that size, there needs to be sewage and water connections available from local municipality, etc., to allow you to go smaller. And it needs to be actually a township development, so there's a whole different process to go through.
I think what he's asking, do we get the opportunity as conservancies to actually put an input into those applications?
Officially, no. Unofficially, depending on the relationships we have within those local municipalities, we do to some degree have a certain say, yes. And I think if I can relate to some of the instances where I've been involved, we get very good support from certain municipalities and absolutely nothing from other municipalities. And personally, I think it's directly linked to the quality of management and the people that are actually running those municipalities, which plays a big role. To some degree, there's an education aspect. Growing up in town or in a city, you have this mindset, a tap is where the water comes out. You have no logic or perception of where the actual water originated from, that it's a limited resource, that it's a precious resource, that it can be polluted. And I think from an education point of view, through the schools and stuff, and media and everything else, and through organizations like us at grassroots level, because this is where we are effective, is we're dealing with people that are actually living in their houses. So it's one-on-one, and we're exposed to the real grassroots issues. And the socio-economic aspects play a role, unfortunately, because let's be honest, if I'm hungry, I'm not worried about whether the animals are surviving or the trees, etc. And you have a primary sort of requirement. You need food, you need a safe place to live, and all of these things. If you can get those key basic elements in place, then I think we've got scope to develop in terms of educating, and it's coming through in the schools. Because the kids are the medium through which the parents are being educated. And it's working. And it's projects like this that are ongoing all the time, like the Yebo course, because that's focused primarily at schools. So, you'll have maybe 200 schools coming through in a period of a week. Coming back to your previous question, in Midvaal specifically, I can say yes, we do have access to that. But if I had to refer, for example, to Mfuleni or Lesedi, it's limited. Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and that type of, I think is a bit more, maybe, Andrew, are you seeing positive interactions there? I know Joburg, the growth development plans and stuff, they seem to be serious, and they seem to be taking things seriously in terms of developing forward. Not only from tourism point of view, but from ecology and that interaction, because they all work together. And the reality is, if we protect the environment and we put the resources and the education and everything, tourism together, we end up with something that solves many problems. But we need to work together.
In the Tshwane area, we've managed to establish a bit of contact there, but the big thing is Tshwane didn't realize what they were inheriting when they took over Gauteng, which has got 10 registered conservancies in it. And Tshwane had never heard of conservancies, and here we came in, and they didn't know how to handle us. Our first experience with them was with an application for a township development. And all of a sudden, Cullinan Conservancy says to them, please don't move the urban edge, because you're going to have urban sprawl and the proposed site is in a wetland. And then they turned around and said, how do you know it's a wetland? And then we had to explain to them, it's our conservancy, all our wetlands are documented, we know what a wetland is. But they turned around and said that the developer who applied for it, I'm not going to mention his name, never said that there was a wetland there. And we then referred them back, because we've got a court case against this company for illegal mining in the wetland. So we had to refer them back to the Department of Agriculture, Water Affairs, Environmental Affairs, to say, now all of a sudden they'll ask us, is there a wetland there? And if we talk to them, we just have to have our facts right and be honest. But Tshwane didn't know what they inherited.
Okay, what we try to promote in the Gauteng Association as well is that all the areas get involved in the IDP document. Okay, if the people are involved with IDP, those things would have been in the council's IDP, and they would have known about it. I understand that Joan and then Twani and Satamadi was linked, so they didn't do it. I know other people that have been in the IDP, their conservation stuff is known. The Midval, all the conservancies, every single thing is from our IDP. It goes to GDOG, which is the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And it's very important because if anything happens in those areas, they actually send us the documents. Any EIAs, any wetland issues, they send everything to us, and we can then see, do we have to do something to work with it. So it's very important that everybody has IDP input. I know it's a long, tedious task, but it's very important.
I think just on that point, the IDP, the Integrated Development Plan, it's law that each municipality has to have one of these documents. And basically what it says is what they're planning to do in the next 5 years. In a nutshell, it's without the technicalities of it. What I found very interesting when I approached the mining issue, if I compared the documentation that existed on Lesedi and I compared it to, for example, Midval, there was a difference of up to 5 or 6 years in terms of the forward planning. Midval, for example, would give me planning to 10 years in advance of where they needed to. Lesedi was still trying to catch up from the previous IDP. So we're sitting with this whole thing. That's why I come back to the skills and the qualifications of the people that are actually employed in those departments. They don't really actually know what to do. And whether it be through cronyism or whether it be through whatever thing, we have a system that is in place. And the reality is, these guys are actually being put in situations that they're actually just not qualified to run. And time does not wait for any man, unfortunately. It's like the pollution in the Vaal water system. We sit with the problem that these guys in Mfuleni have been taken to court. They've actually won the court case twice against the local municipality, Save the Vaal. And the response from the local Sedibeng or Mfuleni municipality is quite simple. We're working on the problem, but it's going to take us 5 years to fix it. So in other words, we'll pollute the river in the 5 years until we get the piping and stuff, because that's what we inherited. And that's the type of variables that we're operating within, unfortunately. And I'm sure we all know about maintenance. I mean, we see the leaves and everything. And the important thing is to focus on what we can change and deal with the rest as we go. Any other questions? I can waffle all day.
We know that.
Thanks, Alan. You trained me well.
We've got the best leader.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that brings Gauteng to an end. Thank you.